So we just had a little technical glitch, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of overlap. Banquo, as I said, looked at his friend and says, "Good sir, why do you start and seem to fear things that sound so fair?" And then he turns to the witches and says, "In the name of truth, are ye fantastical, or that indeed which outwardly ye show? My noble partner you greet with present grace and great prediction of noble having and of royal hope, that he seems rapt withal. To me you speak not. If you can look into the seeds of time and say which grain will grow and which will not, speak then to me, who neither beg nor fear your favors nor your hate." So what Banquo said was like, listen, you gave Macbeth some information and he's stunned. Just, I'd be glad to hear something. Tell me something about myself. And they will. So the witches now are talking to Banquo. They say, "Hail, hail, hail." And these are the predictions for Banquo. "Lesser than Macbeth and greater, not so happy, yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So all hail Macbeth and Banquo. Banquo and Macbeth all hail." Okay, before Macbeth speaks, a word about what the witches told Banquo. If you heard them, they sound like paradoxes. Lesser than Macbeth and greater. Not so happy, yet much happier. And they are. They're paradoxical statements. They were really explained by the third one. The third one was, "Thou shalt get kings." That get is like beget, as in father kings, though thou be none. So the prediction for Banquo is that he will father kings. Now that means somewhere in his lineage. It doesn't necessarily mean his son. It may not even be a grandson. Just somewhere down his line. This all comes into play later on. But anyway, that's the prediction for Banquo. Macbeth finally decides to say something. He's been listening to all this. And they seem to be vanishing. So he says, "Stay, you imperfect strangers. Tell me more. By Sinel's death, I know I am Thane of Glamis." So he's like, I know I'm Thane of Glamis. Sinel must have been his father. And he said, when Sinel died, I got the Thane of Glamis. Because that one I know. But then he continues, "But how of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives, a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of belief, no more than to be Cawdor." What did he just say? I'm not going to be king. Macbeth here is acknowledging the same things we said at the beginning of the play that we noted. Duncan, the king, has a son. As a matter of fact, he's got two sons. He's not going to be king. So he's like, why are you calling me these things? They're not going to come true. And he says, "Say from whence you owe this strange intelligence, or why upon this blasted heath you stop our way with such prophetic greeting. Speak, I charge you." But what happens? The witches vanish. Okay, so they're gone, and Macbeth is just left here with Banquo. And Banquo says to him, "The earth hath bubbles, as the water has, and these are of them. Whither are they vanished?" He's like, where did they go? Macbeth says, "Into the air, and what seemed corporal melted, as breath into the wind. Would they have stayed?" Would is like wish. Banquo says, "Were such things here as we do speak about? Or have we eaten on the insane root that takes the reasoner prisoner?" What's he saying to Macbeth? He's saying, did we just see that? Did that really happen? Is this really going on? Or did we get like a bad mushroom or something? And really, the insane root, that's exactly what they're talking about. Now Macbeth is joking around with him. He says to him, "Your children shall be kings." And Banquo says, "You shall be king." And Macbeth's like, "Oh yeah, and Thane of Cawdor too, when it not so?" To the selfsame tune and words. And then he says, "Who's here?" Because lo and behold, there are missives from the king coming. And who's coming in? But two people, Ross and Angus. These two handsome fellas. They're coming from the king. Gee, what are they going to come to tell Macbeth? They're going to come to tell him about the Thane of Cawdor. So here they were just making fun about what the witches told them. And these two guys come in. And so Ross starts. And Ross, this will be Ross, says, "The king hath happily received, Macbeth, the news of thy success. And when he reads thy personal venture in the rebels' fight, his wonders and his praises do contend, which shall be thine or his." So what's he saying? He says the king's so happy with what he's heard about, and he's already thinking about how he's going to divide up the winnings to what you're going to get and what he's going to keep for himself. And then he continues. Silence with that. In viewing over the rest of the selfsame day, he finds thee in the stout and the weighing ranks, nothing afeard of what thyself didst make. Strange images of death, as thick as hail, came post with post, and every one did bear thy praises in his kingdom's great defense, and pour them down before him. So he what Ross really did was recap everything about fighting the Irish and about how he had to fight Norway, who jumped in. Angus adds, we are sent to give thee from our royal master thanks, only to herald thee into his sight, not pay thee. He's like, we're just here to tell you the king wants to see you. And Ross continues, and for an earnest of a greater honor, he bade me from him call thee Thane of Cawdor, in which addition hail, most worthy Thane, for it is thine. Ross just told Macbeth he's the new Thane of Cawdor. Okay? Banquo's the first to react. Banquo's always the first one to speak. He's like, what? Can the devil speak true? And Macbeth is not accepting it. He said, the Thane of Cawdor lives. Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? Isn't that a great metaphor? He's like, why are you putting something on me, in this case the title, that's not mine? Why do you dress me in borrowed robes? Angus will explain. So that's the Hulk. The Hulk explains. Who was the Thane lives yet, but under heavy judgment bears that life which he deserves to lose. Whether he was combined with those of Norway, or did line the rebel with hidden help and vantage, or that with both he labored in his country's wreck, I know not, but treason's capital, confessed and proved, have overthrown him. So Angus just summarized for Macbeth what the deal was with Cawdor, that he was a traitor. He's like, we don't know if we helped the Irish, we don't know if he helped Norway, we don't know if he helped both, but we know he was a traitor, and he actually confessed it, and that's it, it's over. Now, this is an aside. Macbeth to himself says, Glamis and Cawdor, the greatest is behind. Then he says to them, thanks for your pains. And now he says to Banquo, do you not hope your children shall be kings when those that gave the Thane of Cawdor to me promised no less to them? And Banquo is very reasonable here. He says something very logical. He says, that trusted home might yet enkindle you unto the crown, besides the Thane of Cawdor. But 'tis strange, and oftentimes to win us to our harm, the instruments of darkness tell us truths, win us with honest trifles, to betray us in deepest consequence. And then he goes off with them. He says, cousins, a word I pray you. Okay? So what did Banquo just tell Macbeth? He's like, you know what? We have to just see, but I got to say, it seems a little fishy. And sometimes people trying to do us harm, they give us a little bit of truth, and then that sucks us in, and then it's to something false. And I don't know if you've ever encountered there are a number of things they call confidence games. One that I used to encounter all the time in the city was three-card Monte. There's a guy there with three cards, and he's flipping them, he's spinning them, and he's like, all you have to do is turn over the red lady, the queen, and you stop and you watch someone doing it, and you easily follow it. And he says to the person playing, so which one? And you're like, oh, it's the one in the middle. And the guy picks the one on the end, and he's like, oh, and he walks away. And you're like, oh my God, that was so easy. Are you kidding? And the guy's like, you want to play? And what are you going to say? You're like, sure. Well, you know what? The guy that flipped over the wrong one and left, he's with him. They do this like every hour. And he walks around the block, and someone sees it, and they go over, and then when they do it, they can't get it. That's a confidence game. They win you with a little trifle, and then they deceive you in the bigger thing. While Banquo's off chatting with Ross and Angus, Macbeth is thinking to himself, and he says, two truths are told, as happy prologues to the swelling act of the imperial theme. And then he yells out to them, I thank you, gentlemen. Cannot be ill, cannot be good. So he's literally going through a fair as foul thing in his head. And he's like, is this good or is this bad? And he says, if it's ill, why hath it give me earnest of success commencing in the truth? If it's ill, why did I get the Thane of Cawdor? He goes, I'm Thane of Cawdor. And then he says, but if it's good, why do I yield to that suggestion whose horrid image doth unfix my hair and make me seated heart knock at my ribs against the use of nature. He's like, if it's good, why am I having all these bad thoughts already? And these are the bad thoughts Macbeth is having. As soon as he gets the Thane of Cawdor and starts thinking about, wow, maybe the kingship thing can come true, he's thinking about what maybe he could do to become king. Namely, that means killing the king. And that's what's going through his head. And he says, present fears are less than horrible imaginings. My thought, whose murder yet is but fantastical, shakes so my single state of man that function is smothered and surmised, and nothing but what is not. So you heard him say the word murder. Banquo calls over and says, look how our partners rap. They're all watching him, like pacing and talking to himself. And this is Macbeth's first decision. If chance will have me king, why chance may crown me without my stir. What's his first decision? He's not going to do anything. You know what? Let me just see what happens. If chance will have me king, chance will crown me without my star, without me doing anything. And then Banquo chimes in again. New horrors come upon him, like our strange garments cleave not to their mold, but with the aid of use. Macbeth is still by himself. He says, come what, come may, time and the hour runs through the roughest day. He's like, it's just following up like, I'm just going to see what happens. Banquo says, worthy Macbeth, we stay upon your leisure. That's like, we're waiting for you. And Macbeth is like, oh, I'm sorry, gentlemen. Give me your favor. My dull brain was wrought with things forgotten. Kind gentlemen, your pains are registered where every day I turn the leaf to read them. Let us toward the king. So they're all going to be going to the king. Think upon what hath chanced. And this is, he says to Banquo, think about what happened and what time the interim have weighed. Let us speak our free hearts to each other. And Banquo says, very gladly. And then Macbeth says, till then, enough, come friends. Okay? So what we just had with the three greetings for Macbeth, Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, and King Hereafter, are really what set the whole play in motion. When he gets the Thane of Cawdor, then he starts to think that the witches have good information and that maybe he's going to be king. And that's what sets this whole thing up. And remember, I go back to the first thing I was telling you about this. Duncan's got a son. He's got two sons. The question of heir there should never be a question in Scotland. Yet suddenly someone else is thinking about it. Okay, that's it.